seem to mind. We've all heard House Democrat Whip Catherine Clark's interview describing the suffering of families as leverage to promote health care to illegal aliens. And then there's the Senate Democrat leader, Chuck Schumer, and his comment that every day gets better for us. How cruel, how unfeeling, how uncaring. Clearly, the Democrats are so wrapped up in DC politics, they've forgotten what really matters: helping the Americans thrive. Now, labor unions, as the speaker pointed out, who overwhelmingly supported Democrat politicians and left-wing causes, are calling for Democrats to vote for the House Republican passed clean continuing resolution. We passed it. We funded government. We didn't shut it down. The American Federation of Government Employees, Steamfitters Local 638, Teamsters, and pilots unions are calling for the government to reopen because livelihoods are being crushed. Our nation's children are being impacted too, and I'm concerned about that. Some Head Start programs, some of those small little seats that I've sat in, hearing about what good work is done for these families and kids. Head Start programs, because of the Democrat unfunding of them, will not receive federal grants despite being the only option for many low-income families. That will lead to disruptions that will force families to go without child care as programs face dwindling funds or go without funding entirely. We funded it in the House. The Senate Democrats need to do the same. If the COVID-19 pandemic taught us anything, it's how bad any disruption to a child's life can be. Long-term school closures exacerbated learning loss and caused skyrocketing truancy. How long do the Democrats need to keep our government shut down before they see the real harm they're doing to Americans' children? The Democrat government shutdown has gone on far too long. And the longer it lasts, the worse things get for the American people. This is the first time in history, if you might be reminded, the first time in history a political party has shut down the government over a clean CR. The Democrat petty partisanship is hurting workers and families across the country. The shutdown is also showing Americans just how far the Democrats will go to promote their out-of-touch agenda, even if it means holding the American people hostage for more than a month. America's workers, families, unions, and job creators have all spoken. Chuck Schumer, pass the clean CR and reopen the government immediately. I hope the Democrats are listening, at least 5 of them. Republicans have listened and voted to fully fund the government, coming on 15 times as of today. It's time for 5 more Democrats, including my 2 members from Michigan, to vote the same way. For the children, as Nancy Pelosi has famously said. Do it for the children. Do it for Americans. I now am pleased to turn over the podium to a great leader, Leader Scalise.
Thank you, Chairman Walberg and Secretary Chavez DeRemer. It's great to have you back here in the House. I'll start by joining in with what the Speaker said and extending my condolences to the family of Dick Cheney. Of course, served 8 years as President George Walker Bush's vice president, served in so many other important roles in government, started as a member of this House of Representatives, and lived an incredible life. And we mourn his passing and extend our prayers to the Cheney family. As we look at potentially another vote today in the Senate to try to have a breakthrough to open up the government, let's remember when the Senate votes today, they're not voting on some big, massive omnibus bill, a bill that resolves all of our differences. You know, if you're one of these Democrats, and it only takes 5 to get this government back open, and you're struggling with this decision, do you offend your far left radical base? It's about to elect the new leader of their Democrat Party in Mondami in New York. Or do you stand up for the tens of millions of people around the country who are actually suffering? And if you vote yes today, are you giving anything up? What's in that bill? A clean continuing resolution that violates any of your principles? There's nothing. Again, that bill does not solve our differences. That bill just keeps the lights on. That bill just allows federal workers to get paid for the work that they're doing. Those that have to show up and work and keep our airports open. The air traffic controllers who are working under high, incredible stress in a normal time so that planes can land and take off safely with 150 plus people on each one of those planes without worrying about the stress that as soon as they get off the job, they've got to go do a second shift as an Uber driver because they can't put food on the table because Democrats shut down the government. Hopefully they weigh that when they cast their vote today. And we see every day, of course, unfortunately, more and more consequences to the suffering Democrats are causing. We know on the SNAP program, 42 million people. And yes, the courts are trying to work with the White House to find ways to move some other money around. But as we know, even if they're able to move money around, it doesn't make that program whole. The only way to make the SNAP program whole is by Democrats opening up the government. It's real straightforward. You vote yes or no. You vote yes because you want to put food on the table for 42 million low-income families. But if you vote no, maybe because you're afraid of some radicals in Portland or San Francisco or New York City, when you vote no, you are taking food off the table for 42 million low-income people, the least among us who need that help. 6.7 million going without the Women, Infant, and Children program funding. WIC program is really, really important, again, to very low-income people who need that help. Democrats have no problem shutting off that funding, causing that suffering, and to use their term, because they think they're getting some kind of leverage. We still don't know what the leverage is for. They're trying to leverage the American people, and they can't even articulate what it is they want. Yeah, $1.5 trillion wish list of crazy items like free health care for illegals, gutting a rural health care fund. Is that really the leverage they want to use the American people for and deny the WIC funding? 2 million people in the military, 2 million service members going without pay. What do they say to them? Oh, gee whiz, they were so afraid of Mandami in New York that they couldn't vote to pay our men and women in uniform who are keeping our country safe, risking their lives, while their families are wondering if they're going to be able to put food on the table. What a profile in courage. It's gutless. 700,000 federal employees without pay, 670,000 federal workers furloughed, 5.9 million households at risk of losing their home heating services under the HEAT program. You know, we had Secretary Chavez DeRemer talk about opportunities for young people that just want to learn through apprentice programs to get their start in life so that they can go and get a skill, a trade, maybe start their own small business. That's not going to happen while the government's shut down. And if those Democrats vote no again today, ask them to articulate why. What's their answer to those young people? Some 19, 18-year-old kid who just wants to go learn electrical skills, but won't be able to because, why? Because Democrats want to use him as leverage in some game that they can't even explain. And then, of course, we all know all the different groups that have come out over and over. They've not said, let's pass some big sweeping omnibus bill. They've just said, pass the clean CR that the House passed over a month ago. The National Air Traffic Controllers Association, American Federation of Government Employees, Teamsters, Coalition of Airline Pilots Association, Airline Pilots Association, NetJets Association of Shared Aircraft Pilots, Southwest Airline Pilots. Additionally, United Airlines, Delta Airlines, American Airlines, Southwest Airlines have all called for the same thing. is for the Democrats in the Senate to pass the clean CR. The message couldn't be clear. Their mission can't be more direct. You just show up today and do your job and vote yes. Doesn't solve all of our differences. It just gives us a few more weeks to start negotiating our differences on so many things, but while not holding the American people hostage. End this madness, Democrats. Open up the government. Our whip, Tom Emmer.
The Democrat government shutdown, spanning 35 days and still counting, is now tied for the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Chuck Schumer and company are going down in the history books for being total obstructionists over a nonpartisan government funding bill. Meanwhile, it's hardworking Americans who are being forced to pay the price. Federal workers are turning to local food banks to feed their families. Head Start programs are beginning to close, as Chairman Walberg mentioned. Thousands of flights are getting delayed due to staffing shortages. Small businesses that contract with the federal government have already lost an estimated $12 billion. Even unions, as you've heard, which traditionally have favored our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, are begging for them to end their needless shutdown charade. The good news is, I think we've reached the real inflection point. Today is election day in several states, and we're hopeful that after today, the Democrats won't be as concerned about holding the line in order to appease the Kami Mamdani and Omar Fata wing of their party. And maybe, just maybe, at least 5 Senate Democrats will finally come to their senses and join us by passing our clean CR to reopen the government. The ball is in their court. Republicans have done our job. The question is, are Democrats willing to put politics aside long enough to do theirs? I hope the answer is yes, sooner rather than later. The American people deserve better. Chairwoman McLean.
Thank you. And thank you, Chairman Walberg and Secretary Chavez-Dreamer. It's good to see you again. Thank you for your words of wisdom. But again, here we are today, and I want to be very clear about the consequences of the Democrats' actions. 42 million Americans will lose their SNAP benefits because they voted to shut the government down. Air traffic controllers, TSA agents, and federal law enforcement officers are working without pay because they voted to shut the government down. Democrats have weakened our military, threatened families, and held hard-working Americans hostage. Why? All because they voted to shut the government down. And why did they inflict this pain? Because Democrats wanted leverage. Leverage to appease their radical base with more wasteful spending. And don't take my word for it. They've admitted this countless times. They're not even ashamed of this. And today we'll prove it again when the largest federal workers union called on Democrats to end the shutdown. What Democrats do? They still voted no. When air traffic controllers unions asked them to support the clean CR to make sure that the government stayed open, Democrats voted no. And when nearly 500 small businesses and travel organizations warned the shutdown is crushing them, what Democrats do? They voted no. But the socialist wing of their party wants government-run health care, taxpayer-funded benefits for more illegals, and another $1.5 trillion in wasteful spending. That's what your Democrats want. Enough is enough. We aren't going to let your socialist base call the shots. To every Democrat watching, hear me when I say this. It is time to stop holding the American people hostage. Just because you are being held hostage by your socialist base. End the shutdown. End the pain and suffering for the American people of which you represent, and end it now, please.
All right, thanks again, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary. I know you all are busy. We're glad you're here and grateful to have you. Let's take some questions. Front row, front row.
There's been reports of bipartisan talks from senators to reopen the government, to move forward on ACA votes. Are you or other top House GOP members in the loop with these conversations? Are you present in these meetings?
No, not present in the meetings. I know about as much about it as you do. I know there are, we hope, we pray, a handful of moderate and centrist Democrats left among the Democrats in the Senate, where the whole country is counting upon them. I have said here, I do not expect that Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries will ever vote to reopen the government. I don't think that they're willing to face the wrath of the leftist base. They see what's happening in New York City and in their state of New York, and they're terrified by that. I mean, we've made that very clear, and I think the evidence speaks for itself. So we're going above the heads of the so-called leadership, and we are appealing to the consciences of a handful of people in the Senate who want to do the right thing and just stop the pain for the American people. And we pray that today is that day. Maybe tying for the longest shutdown in history is something that they can claim as some sort of success. But it's sickening. It's sickening to see a political game being played. We're not playing a game here. We never were. Back on September 19th, to remind you all again, we passed a clean, nonpartisan CR. It's 24 pages in length, had not a single Republican priority on it. Why? Because we did it in good faith, because we didn't want this eventuality to occur. We knew it would be too painful for the people, and that's why we've always done the right thing, as everyone has said over and over. Now they won't, and we all know why. Yes, sir. No. If the Senate passes something, of course, we'll come back. We're running out of clock. Obviously, we put 7 weeks on the clock. That was remember, the bipartisan arrangement that was made between Democrats and Republicans in the House and the Senate, in consultation with the Senate, bipartisan, bicameral agreement that they needed 7 more weeks on the clock. Because once we got to the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, there would be that much more time needed, they estimated, to finish the government funding appropriations process. The Democrats have played games, and we've lost so many of those days now. So if they extend it, obviously that logically makes sense to us. I am not a fan of extending it to December because, let's be frank, a lot of people around here have PTSD about Christmas omnibus spending bills. We don't want to do that. It gets too close, and we don't want to have that risk. Well, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. But too many people have concern. I think putting it into January makes sense, but we've got to obviously build consensus around that. There's some discussion about it. We'll see where it lands. I'm not sure. Scott, real quick. Yeah, Scott.
Mr. Speaker, you referenced the passing of Dick Cheney earlier, who was arguably the most powerful vice president in our lifetimes. Obviously, he had a complicated relationship with President Trump in his later years, as did his entire family. But he served, I think, 3, maybe 4 presidents in the White House in some of the top roles. Do you have any personal reflections, or did you have any interactions with Cheney as you were sort of coming up in Republican politics in Louisiana? And do you think, are there any plans for him to lie in the state here at the Capitol where you serve?
Well, this all, just was announced this morning, so there's not been any discussion about that yet. My interaction with him personally was limited when I was a freshman in Congress, and the 115th Congress came here in January 2017. One of my classmates was Liz Cheney, and we were in the same class. And I think I met her father for the first time with her personally. And of course, I was honored to meet him. At the time, everybody was aligned on the same page on everything. And I, admired what he had done in Republican politics to that point. And I meant what I said when I came up here and began this morning, that even when we have political differences with somebody later in life, you have to honor the sacrifices and the service they gave to their country. And we certainly do that for the former vice president, and our prayers go out to the whole family. So, yeah.
You talk about the split screen between the Democrats are doing it, what the Republicans are doing. What about the split screen about the fact that the Trump administration is administering only part of the SNAP program while President Trump is having a gathering party at Mar-a-Lago?
I reject the premise of the question. Let me talk about SNAP. Okay. By the way, the president had an annual Halloween themed party every year at Mar-a-Lago. That's what he went back to as obligatory tradition. And I just discount what you're trying to do there. The SNAP benefit is a very important question. The White House has bent over backwards, as we've recounted here every morning, to make sure that Americans' pain is mitigated as much as possible, reduced as much as possible. So we got the troops paid. They made creative solutions for that. The WIC funding for women, infants, and children. And SNAP came to a legal crossroads because the legal analysis said that you could not use the contingency fund if the underlying fund was not flowing. I've explained that into detail here multiple times. Two courts disagreed. So what did the president do? In good faith, showing again that he's willing to bend over backwards to help the American people when Democrats are not, he went to the court and said, fine, show me how to do it, because we don't see the path. And so the courts have ordered that. They filed a brief yesterday, or some response yesterday in the court, that they'll give as much as is there. Remember, the contingency fund only has roughly $5 billion, and it costs roughly $9 billion for a month of SNAP benefits. So I think the arrangement is they're going to give half, at least half, to everyone. But here's the problem: it's very complex, is that it's administered through the states, and you have to recalculate all the allocations and how the checks go out. It's not, you can't just flip a switch and do that. It's a lot of work that goes into it. So I can tell you that the president is dialed in on this. The president is trying to protect and cover the American people, as he always does. The president is trying to get the government open again. And the Republicans have voted 14 times to do it, and the Democrats have voted 14 times not to do it, to keep the government closed. That's the story. And I don't know why there's any confusion about this at all. They're going to do it again today. My prediction is the Democrats are going to vote for the 15th time to shut their government down, and they're going to look down their noses at the people who are struggling, who're suffering, can't put food on the table, who can't pay their bills because they're playing games over here. It is absolutely unforgivable in my view. And I wish more of you would give them a tougher time. Yes, last one.
Are you going to be able to coach?
A question for the Secretary, if I may. I'm just curious if you can kind of tell us what we know about how the shutdown has impacted the labor market. Obviously, with Bureau of Labor Statistics folks being furloughed, I'm curious what we do know so far about how this has impacted the job market, and if we will really be able to get a full picture, or if we will it take the shutdown ending for us to be able to get a full picture?
Yeah, thank you for the question on the Labor Department, and specifically BLS, the labor statistics, how important those data points are in order for the markets, in order for employers to understand what the workforce is needed. We are not able to release a lot of those reports because we have those furloughed employees. So once the government is open, we will get right back to work in releasing that. We released one report earlier this month because that was required by law, and the CPI, in order to talk about Social Security checks for 2026, that had to be calculated. So we brought some workers back for that, but we will not be able to release the other data points. As far as the Department of Labor goes, as was mentioned, when we're talking about the SNAP program, one of the other programs that we're definitely concerned about, and we've sent letters out to all 50 states, is unemployment insurance. As delivered by those states, that will be the next thing that we have to be concerned about. If people stop receiving their unemployment insurance, will be another detrimental fact to the American workforce. So that is what we're focused on now. We need this government open. We need to get back to work for the American people. The American workers deserve to know where their next paycheck is coming from, and the American economy deserves the American workers there. So yes, this is impacting the labor force. I would imagine we're going to see more and more things every single day that this government is shut down. It is going to affect the American economy. And so we're working hard at the Labor Department to make sure that we can keep everything running that we can. But right now at this point, we're working off the back heels of us, and we have to do everything we can. So it's important to get as many statistics out as we can, but we haven't been able to do so. So we're working hard for the American people. We need this government open to do so and to continue.
Thank you.
Real quick, do you support ICE raids in districts like Speaker Johnson's district, the Republicans up here on stage, in the agriculture and hospitality sectors?
Well, one of the things we focus on is all of the programs in order to support the American people. Certainly, the president has been clear. We secured that border. We're going to continue to work on behalf of this administration to focus on the American people, American first policies, and the American workforce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What about LSU?
Thank you.